I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to A Dog's Life. Hey Mr. Binks, you know that I've been glued to a book called On Hampstead Heath. Well, the funny thing is, we're going to jump on the overground and get to Hampstead Heath to record a podcast with the author of the book, Marika Cobbold, at our lovely producer's studio, also in Hampstead. Hi Marika, welcome to A Dog's Life.
Hello, it's lovely to be here.
Well, it's lovely to see you again. The last time we met, I was offering some help with little Wilbur, who's here with us at the moment, your dachshund.
Yes, indeed, much needed help, and he needs some more help from you, but he is a much improved dachshund.
I'm really
I'd say.
pleased.
Yeah.
I think everything's fixable, you know.
Yes, and he is, of course, pretty perfect. Anyhow, I want to hasten to add, not to sound disloyal, but there are a few little issues needing ironing out.
No, but not really. I mean, you know, he's a typical lockdown puppy, really.
Yes, he is. Yes.
You know, with all the issues that lockdown brought for dogs.
Yeah.
So it's not really his fault.
No.
And he's young, and so behaviours can be turned around
Yes.
easily, I think. So.
Yes, and he's very willing. That's the thing. He loves to please and very willing to learn. It's just really, as they say, it's never a bad dog. It's a bad owner, and I'm just bad at being, you know,
Tough.
Yeah, tough is tough love is love I can do. Tough love I'm not too good at.
I know, exactly. And eye contact, of course, that was the big one we,
We're very good on that, he and I.
Better now. 'Cause
No, eye contact. Oh, you mean avoiding eye contact?
Yes, avoiding.
Oh,
like
rather than, I was going to say,
rewarding.
we're very good at having eye contact. You meant, yes, of
But
course.
too much.
Yes,
Remember,
yes,
that's such
yes.
a subtle
I
thing.
ignore him now a bit.
Yes, good. Also brilliant to meet you because you're Swedish.
Indeed.
And I'm half Swedish, so I do love connections with Sweden. It warms my heart, Marika. So.
And you look Swedish, unlike me. So
No,
so
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. It's,
blonde and blue-eyed, whereas I'm a sort of fake Swede, really, if you look at me more. But anyhow, yes, but I am Swedish, yeah.
Exactly. It was funny. I was watching a programme with Judi Dench when they, you know, that programme on the BBC where they go back in time
Yes.
and go
Who
into
do you think you are?
That's the one. And I had the telly on. I wasn't just, you know, watching it totally, but it caught my eye because she's part Danish. Like way back in her family tree, there are Danes. And the funny thing was she was so proud of this, to be part Viking, Marika.
People are very, if you are sort of pretty Viking, on three sides of my family. One side were Jewish immigrants to Sweden, but on the other three sides they've been Swedish in fact Swedish-Danish forever. And of course you grew up feeling terrible Viking shame.
I know, because they really were a bit divide and conquer, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure divide in a physical sense. They quite like to actually divide people in half more than actually divide the kingdom. They were quite sophisticated, and of course they were actually not quite as heinous as is described in popular culture. And they were pretty good on women, not the ones they pillaged and raped, obviously, but Viking society back in Scandinavia, women had quite a powerful place in society. So you know, they had their redeeming features.
It's interesting.
Sort of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But no, I know. I do love Scandinavia, though, and most of Scandinavia was farming, wasn't it? So
Yes.
there was just a few Vikings that went out around the world, but it was a minority of the population, really.
Absolutely. Very much a farming agrar society, I think we say, don't we?
Right, yes. But in your book, which I've got on my lap, and I have just finished it, On Hampstead Heath, Marika, I've got to say this is a brilliant read, partly because I suppose I'm in the media, and this book is kind of set around newspapers and about the news and fake news, which we've heard a lot about in the last few years. And the character, would you say, character called Thorn,
Yes.
is loosely based on yourself?
Well, I would say that I don't like basing characters on myself because, that's not that interesting, quite frankly. And I certainly don't write about my own life. So there's nothing much. I mean, knowing about newspaper, I grew up in a newspaper family, so it's my world. And her interests and her sort of passion for truth and her worry and her fear for a society where people really have stopped being able to distinguish between truth and fake when it comes to information. That's all concerns I share. But our lives are very different. And our childhood, I had a very happy childhood. She had a pretty miserable childhood. But I suppose what she says and thinks a lot of the time is pretty much what I would say and think in those situations.
Yes.
If that makes any sense at all.
No, it certainly does, but there's several layers going on in the novel, which I love, and this whole kind of illusion of truth. What is truth?
Yes.
And almost that you can fabricate the truth to even believe that is truth.
I so love that you actually totally get what it's about, because when you do, unless you hammer home a message, because I quite like I like a book to be fun to read, and I like it to be entertaining. I don't like it to be obscure. I don't believe that a good book has to be a difficult book. But the danger of writing a book that is quite easy to read and maybe, I hope, entertaining in some ways, that the seriousness can get sort of buried a little bit, or you write lots of layers and you're a little bit subtle and people don't pick up on it. So it's absolutely wonderful to hear you say picking up on all the things I sort of wanted to put in there. So thank you.
No, not at all. But of course, a seminal thread through the book is a little minpin called Gillie, who's very important to Thorne, the character.
Yes.
Because Gillie is her dear friend Lottie's dog, and Thorne helps Lottie, who isn't very well, and she walks Gillie on the heath, and this allows Thorne lots of time to enjoy, obviously, the amazing Hampstead Heath, think, and indeed meet, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but basically create the central part of the plot, meeting what will become the hashtag Angel of the Heath.
Exactly.
So, but little Gillie, he actually is based on your own miniature pincher.
Yes, he definitely is based on, when I started writing the book, and it took me a long time to write it, and I was writing it before I got Gillie, and I was another dog. It was just a dog. I like dogs, obviously love dogs, and he was in the story. But then we lost Gillie, and I was in as they say, a very bad, dark place. And I buried myself in work. It was the only thing that sort of kept me vaguely sane. And sorry, that's my little dog whining. So I ended up, the only way I could still have the dog in the book, I just wrote Gillie. So it became my little dog. So
he's in the book.
Yes, he lives in the book.
He lives in the book.
Yeah.
Because, in a way, this is a bit of a tribute to Gillie, because, how we're living in this world where, dog theft has just escalated, beyond reason, really, through the pandemic. But even before then, nasty people would be around. It's funny watching Mr. Binks here with Wilbur, because there's this dog language going on right here. Binks is play bow, looking away, see how his eye contact looks away from Wilbur, so as not to be too much for him when Wilbur's looking sideways, and he's trying to pull Wilbur out of himself to kind of feel relaxed.
It's so sweet.
It is really, really sweet, actually.
To watch them together.
It is. And Wilbur's now, he's a bit more perky, he's looking a bit more confident. And Binks is a total softie.
Oh, he's lovely.
But he couldn't do all of this when I first got him. That's
So yes, you brought him completely out of
himself.
Yes.
Binks, are you trying? But we're recording, Binks. Why don't you come and sit in Billy's bed? But yes, no. So it was a tragedy that happened, Marika, and I hope it's okay to share this with our listeners.
Of course.
Because you were out one day with Gillie on Hampstead Heath as normal.
Yeah, I was out and walking him, and he was only 11 months old, and he was absolutely, he's very like Mr. Binks. He's a little min pin, exact little black min pin, and he was incredibly keen on other dogs, and of course super fit. He was like a little antelope running around the heath, and he had run off, you know, after other dogs, but you know, the heath seemed such a safe doggy place. You know, he was never gone for more than a few minutes. You know, dogs are always on, you know, in fact you're told that you're quite cruel if you don't let them run around and play with other dogs. And this time it's difficult to put it as very briefly, because it was such a strange and terrible thing, but he was playing with another couple of dogs, and he was, you know, whatever, I'm here, whatever that distance is, in the grass on the cusp of the hill on the heath, and he was playing with these other two dogs, and then a dog walker with a whole big pack came across the path. So for a moment I lost sight of Gillie, and when the sort of throng, the pack cleared, the other two dogs were there, but Gillie wasn't. And you know, and I wasn't panicking at that point, because like literally at one point somebody said he must have been killed by one of the dogs and lying in the grass afterwards, because it was so quick, he was just gone. So, but somebody said, oh, he's over there, we saw him over there, so behind me. So I ran off there in that direction, because he wasn't there when I came back. You know, he could be in any of four directions. Cut a long story short, what had happened was that he'd followed somebody with two other dogs, and this person who lives in Hampstead, walks his dogs on the heath, had so Gillie had his name and my name and telephone number and everything on his harness, but he chooses to make two quick phone calls on my mobile when I'm phoning my husband, phoning the Hampstead constabulary, etc., for help. So he was engaged for 5 minutes or so. And later I realised, because you have all the call history, he'd phoned twice within a couple of minutes, didn't leave a message. So then I saw somebody had called a different number, so I thought, must be somebody, mobile number, who's found Gillie. So I call and the phone is turned off. So by that time my husband is there, everyone's looking, and all the rest of it, and I'm getting more and more panicked. I keep leaving messages for this person saying, look, if you have found my dog, please call back, and so on. Anyhow, half an hour on, finally calls back and says, yes, he had my dog and he left him tied up on the railings by the pond, mixed swimming pond, at which point I said, are you insane? You left a puppy tied up and just... Anyhow, by the time we got there, he was gone, and we didn't know what had happened, if he'd got himself free or what had happened, but later we found witnesses, and also the next morning we were called by the RSPCA, and he'd been brought in dead to them. He'd been run over. It was a different part of London. He was wearing a different collar, and then later we found out that two women had come across him tied up, had taken him, and obviously they hadn't looked. They could just have called us, but they stole him, took him home to them, and then somehow he ended up dead on the main road.
So sorry to hear this.
Yeah, it's 2 years now, and it's
not long.
No, it's something. I don't think to lose a dog. I had a lovely Chihuahua, and he died age almost 16 in my arms. The vet came, he was ill, almost 16, came, and he was licking liver paste off my fingers, and he got an injection, and that was traumatic enough, but a different grief. But losing a puppy, and in those circumstances, and the absolute haunted by how scared he would have been, and were they nice to him or were they horrible to him in that. And the only thing I can say is that I'm grateful at least we found out what happened to him, because the people, and there are many, who lose a dog, if we hadn't found out, I could never have got another dog, because, I couldn't have and honestly, I don't think I could have coped, because you hear about these terrible stories that happens to dogs, and the idea of your little dog suffering in that way is so unspeakable that the way I work, and, I'm a writer, my imagination is pretty hectic. I don't know that I would have coped. I don't know that, but it's left me with such a fear that I don't let anyone take Wilbur out, and at all, other than me and my husband.
No, well, it's understandable, Marika. I mean, I'm just, the pain. I could so relate to the pain, and that God hasn't happened, but you know, it's just that worry, you know, and as you say, what was going through his mind. But, you know...
And it was so unnecessary, sorry. It was,
Yes.
you know, the fact is the dog, but if this man, all he needed to do, he was 2 minutes from the local vet. He must know that because he is local. He was, you know, even if he just let Gillie go, but he took him and tied him up because he thought he might follow him further or something. You know, that it's insanity to behave like that. Any normal person, any other person on the heath would have just hung on to him and called us.
Exactly.
Or taken him to the vet 5 minutes away. So that adds a sort of layer of utter frustration and bitterness, really.
No, oh gosh, Marika, absolutely, you know, hideous. And I think, you know, so it was so lovely for me to catch a glimpse of Gillie in the book, going back, you know, because I knew about Gillie before reading the book. So it meant a lot, actually, that moment where there were the dog walkers, which obviously led to meeting, I'd say, the other protagonist, really, the main sort of plot, and how that then unravels.
Yes.
And you know, and that's what dogs do, isn't it, when you're out with dogs?
That's how I met our producer.
Our great producer.
Mike, and his wonderful partner Colette. That was walking Gillie, and they were walking Billy, and that's how we met.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
You know,
and now I've met you through having this retrobate who needs...
Well, he's just a lockdown pup, but he's great. He's looking perky.
Yes,
looking at Mr. Binks.
He's
Mr.
sort
Binks.
of a lifesaver, really, this little person.
No, I think as well, you know, there's so many people have different views on when to get another dog. You know, it's when I lost my first bull terrier, Molly. You know, I was flattened, really. I derailed. I managed to move to Shropshire, Marika, to be near my mother. I know, it's only like it's in Wales, pretty much,
yes,
you know.
I know.
Yeah, things like that, which, you know, didn't do me any favours, really, at all. It's very far from Shropshire to London and so on. But, you know, you do these weird things in life and it just happens, doesn't it? But the grief is unbelievable. But I did bite the bullet, swallow the bitter pill and get another dog. And I think really for you it was, I think, a good move to bring Wilbur into your life.
It was a very strange thing because after my Chihuahua died, I couldn't imagine having another dog. But I loved having all his things around. You know, we didn't clear his things away for ages. We obviously kept some always, but you know, and it was a completely different. I suppose it's the grief between, you know, losing a loved one who was very old and had a long, good life and a good death, if there is such a thing, and a very young person in traumatic circumstances. So for some reason it's really weird. I just, all that could keep me going was another dog. It was like I had this, and you know, no one could ever, I had a sort of Gillie shaped hole in my heart which will never be filled because it's Gillie shaped, but there was also a dog puppy hole to be filled, and it really was a bit of a lifesaver. If I hadn't had the idea of another little dog and that to look forward to, and then he arrives. I don't want to be melodramatic, but as I said, I was not in a good place. So for me, I was surprised myself, but for me, it was the right thing to do.
Yes, because, you know, you have to keep in the moment. You've got to pick up their poo. You have to walk them. And there's that, you know, routine and structure that dogs, you know, it's a two-way street owning a dog. We give them the structure and the routine, but they also give it to us. And of course, you know, with lockdown that no one could have seen being around the corner, I'm sure, you know, Wilbur's been fabulous.
Absolutely, and I work from home even when it's not lockdown, being a writer.
Of course.
So you know, it's great, and but you know, we are one person and two dogs on our heath walks because, you know, it's Wilbur and me, and then Gillie's somehow there as well, you know, and it's both happy to think of him there and see him there, but also sad. You know, the heath now has become a place that's a bit of a mixed place for me. I love it, but it's never completely complicated.
No, I'm sure, forever,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a terrible shame because, you know, you
it
live
was
in
just a happy place. And
a
now
happy
it's
place. But the book as well, really, because it is called On Hampstead
Yes.
Heath. So I guess it is, I know you started to write it before Gillie came into your life, but as you say, it's almost a tribute to him, really, particularly with the characters in mind, you know, Thorn, and then you have, Rufus.
Yes, absolutely.
And this kind of totally extraordinary way that they met, and you know, an unlikely match became the match. But Gillie was really the one that sort of spurred the whole thing on, wasn't he? And so he is a major role in the book.
Oh, totally, because actually the situation and the characters I had in my mind when I was working on the book forever, but where the pivotal event took place only became Hampstead Heath when I got Gillie and started. Also, although I always lived nearby, I didn't walk a lot there. So it was Gillie, walking Gillie on the Heath and seeing Viaduct Bridge every day, that made me, so the whole book changed venue, really. It became a book about Hampstead Heath, which it wasn't before Gillie came into my life. So he was very much influenced the whole book, I have to say. Yeah.
No, it's lovely, and you get a real flavour of London in the book as well, and the media, and at times it reminded me, reading it, a bit of the film, you know, The Post.
Yes. I've not seen it, but it's on my list. So and I forgot about it, so I must go
I think
home
you'd
and
love
watch
it.
Yes, I know. It was meant to be Meryl Streep, isn't it?
It is, yes, and you look like Meryl Streep, so the whole thing is
Well.
perfect. And it's all about the truth, and they don't sell out. I don't want to spoil it for you.
No,
actually.
no. But
It's a film you can see loads of times, actually, because it just boosts you if you're feeling low.
Yeah.
You know, it's just such a tremendous.
Oh, I'll go and I'll watch it over the weekend. That'll be a treat.
Oh, but I love it as well because you know you go through the seasons in the book as well, and you talk about children at Christmas and Hampstead on the high street at Christmas with all the pretty lights and so on, and about your ex-husband coming around with a great big Christmas tree for you. Well, not for you, but for Thorn, the character, and she was quite brusque about it all, really, and didn't want this bloody great tree, and there's the whole thing, you know, about tradition, really.
Yes.
Which I love, actually, being, you know, the Swedish side of me. You know, I do love my tomtar.
Yes.
I've got quite a few of them.
Oh,
you
they're
know,
lovely.
They are. They're elves, aren't they, in English?
Well,
Are
we're very tomte is a pagan thing that is little creatures, little gnomey, goblin-y things that live in farms and whatever, and they cause quite a lot of mischief and all the rest of it. And then it became kind of mixed up with Christmas and what we call the jultomte, the Christmas tomte, who is Father Christmas now. You know, he's just like anybody else's Father Christmas, but he's called jultomte. And then there are little tomtenissar that they're called, which are little tomtes who are now totally Santa's elves, I suppose. But it's always got slightly darker roots in those elves. Mischievous. They're not nasty at all, but you know, we have a lot of fairy tales and myth in Sweden, and tomtes and elves and fairies and, you know, trolls. We're very big on trolls.
I love trolls.
Oh yeah, trolls. We're big on trolls. Not nasty internet trolls, but complicated,
no, you don't like those
serious trolls.
Exactly. But in the book, you know, I must admit, I loved your cynicism a bit for social media in this, I have to say.
Spend far too much time on Twitter. That's why I know what I'm talking about.
You know, and the other bit that I loved, the word just came out of the page to me. You see, I'm a reasonably massive Philip Pullman fan, in that I love the Northern Lights and his whole concept of demons and animals being your soul, and of course without the animal aspect of yourself then you are nothing and you die. I just adored all of that, and you do call Gillie your demon.
Yes, I do. And again, I haven't actually read. I admire Philip Pullman because I know he's a fantastic writer and all the rest of it, but I haven't actually read him myself. So I'm extremely happy to hear that I share something with him, because that's anything you share with Philip Pullman is a good thing.
Yeah, I guess. I know. I mean, he is extraordinary. Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I know all about it because everyone talks about it. And I said, I suppose because I didn't read it to my children for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Or maybe they weren't out then. And then, I haven't read them all. I haven't read Harry Potter either.
No, I haven't read Harry Potter. But I think Pullman's, probably say, it is in a different league.
It's different. It's a bit like the Moomin Trolls, the Finnish, which is sort of really literature, or Alice in Wonderland. It's not so much for children as it is for grown-ups in some ways, although they are children's books ostensibly.
Yeah, everything works on different layers, though. Actually,
exactly.
But no, I love Christmas. I fond memories of spending Christmas in Sweden, because unlike here, obviously the main event is Christmas Eve.
Exactly.
And it's all about ham and herring and like a big cold buffet where you just an amazing potato salad that you can't get anywhere else apart from in Scandinavia. I don't know why. I think it might be the dill.
Is it the Jansson's Temptation?
Jansson's, that's my mum's favourite thing. Jansson's.
Yeah, Jansson's. And then it's a huge buffet, and I shall now commit sacrilege, and I'm glad my father in Sweden can't hear this, but I would say one of the reasons I left Sweden was to get away from that damn Christmas buffet. I much prefer turkey and sprouts and roast potato and Christmas pudding, but Swedes are devoted to this.
Totally devoted, aren't they? But also to all of the reindeer, and I suppose because there's always snow at Christmas, it's guaranteed, and it's proper snow, that you get that whole Santa Claus experience with candles, advent calendars, bullar, and the whole works.
I think with Swedes, probably because it is so dark and it is so, and winter
dark.
does start so much earlier and lasts so much longer, the Swedes really do take Christmas rather seriously. And, one lovely thing is that you have these, they're quite common here now, but it's sort of electric candlesticks, really, with sort of like a triangle with 7 lights or something like that. Not a menorah, but it looks a bit like it. And people basically have them in every window of the house, and people don't draw curtains. So you drive around town or the country, and every window has a Christmas light. And you have the Lucia, which is the 13th of December, which is the festival of light, which is also a kind of pagan come Christian sort of mashup, where young children walk through the streets in the dark, and you have the Lucia, who's got a crown of candles in her head and dressed in a sort of white robes, and all the attendants dressed similarly. And we carry on, it goes on, and then after Christmas, it's not just one day, and we take it, and it's serious business in Sweden. And I'm from a Jewish Christian mixed background, but we did take Christmas very seriously, and it was fun. Not a commercial so much, but just the whole getting together and decorating and wrapping presents and all the rest of it. So yes, and advent calendars are very important to my family. Very.
And I love advent calendars as well, I must say. Are they pagan as well?
I don't think so. Certainly not in Sweden. I think they're definitely leading up. And of course, interestingly, they end on the 24th mostly, don't they?
Yes.
Because it's only really America, the English-speaking world, that has Christmas Day as the main.
Is it
event.
really?
I think so.
Oh,
and of course, Russia and places like that have, I think it's the 6th of January or something with their Christmas.
Yeah, yes.
But the rest of Europe, I think, have 24th as the main event.
But advent calendars, no, I loved those as a child. But do you think Wilbur's going to have an advent calendar, Marika? Because this is the thing. Advent calendars are now all the rage for metropolitan doggies.
You are kidding me.
No.
We are now thinking, where can we lay our paws on a doggy calendar? Because Wilbur, who's been on a diet since the summer, is it anything edible in it by any chance?
Well, yes. No.
Wow, yeah, because otherwise I'm not sure how much he would appreciate it.
No. So, well, the great thing is this. We've got, I'll get you one of these actually, Marika.
Oh.
So it's a German brand called Fresco Dog. And I know, but it's all really natural, single source proteins. And basically, so the 24 days are all different little bits, chunks of meat. I know. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. So Wilbur could have a bit of venison, which is very Scandinavian.
Is there one for me as well?
No, not in
One
this.
with little bottles of gin.
No, sorry. No, not even alcohol-free gin, which apparently is all the rage now.
Yeah, well, that's pointless, isn't it?
But
Anyway, but back to the doggy calendar. You're serious? This is the thing?
This is the thing.
Oh, wow.
I know, and this is all quite new actually, and so I'm very excited about this for Prudence and Mr. Binks.
Oh,
Actually.
I would love one for Wilbur.
We'll get this sorted out. So
because
yes,
I think he's a very intelligent animal, obviously, and I think honestly he would get very excited about coming down to the kitchen every morning with us, and sort of have a little thing and get a treat from his calendar. I think that's wonderful.
I think it's brilliant, you see, because it offers another training opportunity in the day. So we have to do our sit, we get, on the dog's level and open it up and make a big deal, but he's got to hold the sit stay, and then he gets his reward, and then it's
brilliant.
Like play a game of fetch in the garden. So it adds to that build-up, because I really believe dogs know it's Christmas.
Oh.
In fact, they know something big is going on. What with the tree being put up, and everyone's getting super stressed out, and they're probably thinking, "What is all this hoo-ha
And lots
for?"
of food that he can't reach if you're a dachshund.
Exactly, or allowed to eat, like the mince pies.
Yes,
and
exactly. Oh gosh, no mince pies.
No, or too much chocolate. So there's no chocolate in these advent calendars.
No, of course not.
Of course,
No.
no. But yes, I know, and it's kind of this thing that Christmas is now, really on the map for dogs as being part of the family, which I think is fantastic, really.
Oh, we do wrap presents, of course, always for our dogs. You have to wrap them so there's not too much sellotape, but lots of wrapping paper, so they can but you can't just sit everyone opening presents and the dog sits there and doesn't get his presents. That's just mean, isn't it?
It is mean.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
So. It is. It's a big thing for discerning metropolitan doggies, which Wilbur is definitely one of. Yeah, but also, going back to your writing and literature, I guess dogs play such a role, don't they, in novels generally, as being, a way to move the plot forwards, move it backwards, show other characteristics from other people in the book. If they're nice people, if they like dogs, if they're thoughtful.
Spot on.
Like Rufus, in the cafe, who said, I think Gillie wants a bowl of water. Yeah. And
that's spot on. You can because we all know, if we love animals, we all know what we think of people who don't like animals, and let alone anyone who treats them badly. But we also know the fellow feeling you get from a fellow animal and dog lover. So you can show not tell, the great fiction mantra,
show not tell,
through their behaviour to the dog. Exactly. So you don't always have to. Wilbur, darling, you don't always.
No, don't reward it.
Sorry, that's. You think I'm not listening to a word you said. But it's absolutely true, because you don't always want the character to have to talk to other people that much, but you can have other people interacting with her dog, and then you get a feel for the character, as you say.
Well, it's all food for thought. Thank you, Marika. Till next time.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Binks, that's our show. What did you think? Yes, Wilbur is a lovely miniature dachshund, and you guys look like you're going to be best friends. What's that, Mr. Binks? Oh yes, you're right, it is time for Woof of the Week. Never underestimate the profound grief that dog owners suffer, particularly when a dog dies suddenly in unexpected circumstances. Thank you again to Marika Cobbold for joining us today. All the links to On Hampstead Heath and to her will be in the show notes. Thank you to Mike Hansen, my brilliant producer. Find out more about him at Pod People UK. And for me, I'm at Anna Webb Dogs. What's that, Mr. Binks? Yes, we will be back in your feed next Sunday. So why don't you all subscribe now? Then you'll never miss another show. Bye for now.